questions real quick. The first one is, how quickly will the provisions of this agreement start taking effect? And then the other would be, where are we at with the immigration bill?
So this, when you do this 287G, it involves really significant training. And so you're going to have our folks are going to go through, they're going to work with DHS, and they are going to be trained to be able to exercise these authorities. Now, they're not exclusively going to necessarily do this to the exclusion of others. I mean, for example, you have people that are on our highway patrol, keeping our streets safe. You have an illegal that's driving drunk, gets pulled over. They're now going to be trained to know, okay, doesn't have the ability to produce identification, acknowledges he's in the country illegally, then you know what to do with ICE to be able to protect the public. And one of the things I've just seen time and time again is when you have a fatal crash involving an illegal driver, a lot of times they've had previous times where they've been pulled over for erratic driving or drunk driving, and it's almost like catch and release. So you just do that. So there is going to be some ramp up time before all these authorities are exercised, but we think it's important to do this at the front end so that we're able to get the most out of it. Now, we have been working in good faith with folks in the legislature on making sure state law is reflecting the urgency of the situation, and that we'll be able to maximize support for the Trump administration's agenda along these lines. Clearly, I made my views known on what they produced in the special session last week. We know that we need to make sure that we have state and locals involved. We can't just be participating in catch and release. We need to be able to have a legal basis to hold people accountable if they enter illegally, and on and on. So I do think that the policy is probably less far apart than what it was last week, and we'll see. But ultimately, it's like, what do the voters expect us to do? And I think the voters expect us to be as strong as we can. I mean, someone was saying, oh, the governor is too hawkish or something on illegal immigration. Our voters will never say anything's too strong. They want strong. And so we got to make sure what we're doing is going to be really strong. But I do think that we are going to get there. And look, we've been willing to work in good faith. We were out last week educating people, letting them know the problems. People clearly had some issues with what was done. But then most of this week, we've just been working, trying to line up the policy, and then let's get off to the races and get the job done.
Does this agreement preclude the need for a statewide office of immigration enforcement or a chief officer? Because clearly, I mean, you're able to make agreements with Homeland Security that sound pretty ironclad and sound like they're going to accomplish a lot of things that the Trump administration wants to do.
So from the state level, I think you're right. I mean, we've been doing this already, right? When some of the legislators were doing some of the proposals that we were supportive of, did this chief immigration officer, it really wasn't trying to upend any apple cart. It was just to have kind of a clearinghouse so that you have someone that's actively coordinating with the sheriffs and the police chiefs. But technically, you don't need that. You could just have the agency heads do that as a matter of course. What the legislature did was they took that and put it in the Department of Agriculture and then vested the agriculture commissioner with substantive authority to basically scuttle any immigration enforcement. So they deleted all of our authorities to do the operations we're doing. So the vessels, that would stop if their bill had passed. The interdictions that Dave has been doing and FDLE, that would stop. And locals would not even be able to communicate with ICE without getting the mother may I. So they made that and I think it was unconstitutional the way they did it. I think clearly people rejected that, and they know that that's not the way to go. But the reality is we can do state level enforcement. We want legislation to say that we have a duty for both state and local. But I mean, I am gonna do it, and so it makes sense to put it in law. But I'm going to do it anyways, and we'll figure out, however, whether you have an immigration officer or not have an immigration officer, basically these agencies are able to work with ICE, and they're able to execute these agreements as is requested by the Department of Homeland Security. And as I said, FDLE, we stand ready. Maybe Homeland Security doesn't need that, or maybe they don't want it. We stand ready with our maritime, with Fish and Wildlife. Maybe they don't need it. Maybe they don't want it. We also stand ready with our state and National Guard. So there's a lot of possibilities here, and we're going to be able to do it, no matter what the contours are of this.
Will there be a special session to address the type of urgent legislation you're discussing?
So this is not legislation. This is an agreement. This doesn't require ratification from the legislature, just as it doesn't require ratification of the state government if a sheriff wants to enter into an agreement of 287G. And there's going to be other permutations of this. I think this program, you saw massive atrophy under Biden with this. They really weren't even doing the training. And so this is going to take probably some time for that to stand up. But you could have a police chief enter in an agreement, a mayor. You could have sheriffs do it. Now, we think everyone needs to be on board. You know, what makes sense for them. There's going to be some areas that may not have the ability to have as many trained because they're shorthanded. We get that. We're not doing anything unreasonable. What we want to do is just do what the voters sent us here to do and make sure that this policy succeeds. But this is all done from agency to agency, state, federal, or local federal. And I mean, under the proposed law that they did last week, you actually could have the agriculture commissioner could have denied the ability of like a hard-charging sheriff to want to enter into an agreement. That obviously is unacceptable. We want the sheriffs want to be stronger. I don't think they're going to get stronger than us, but if they could, why would we want to reel that back in?
Governor,